a number of you watching on the YouTubes have expressed your desire to have the live show back on YouTube. We are sort of bringing it back, but you got to pay for it. Patreon.com/SwitchCast if you want to interact with us on the live shows, and we'll have some bonus content on there as well. So sign up, and season 6, you'll be able to watch it live with us. We'll continue to stream or upload the individual segments on YouTube as we're doing now. But for those of you who really want the full hour and a half plus and some bonus content in between, backstage pass, so to speak, sign up.
If you really want to hang out with us, virtually,
it's fun. Sometimes the discussions in between the episodes are even better. So I think we struck, in the words of Tower of Power, we struck a main nerve with our discussion on car culture.
So many comments.
Many comments. Very good comments, valid ones on all sides of the aisle. I found it interesting that people were telling me I was wrong from both sides. And I'm like, well, if you two disagree and you're both saying I'm wrong, like, am I that wrong? Or
you're just super wrong, Doug. That's what was so fascinating is I read through like all of these comments, and so many people were just mad about opposite things.
Yeah.
It's wild.
And maybe that's one of the struggles of car culture. And I think somebody correctly identified this in the comments is people want different things out of it. So obviously we're coming at it with a certain bias, trying to understand where people are coming from and what makes car culture great. But car culture means different things to different people. But we wanted to, I think there's some things that I identified that we missed based on the feedback that we got from the listeners. And there was just some really great feedback. So I've got some more notes. How do we fix car culture? What is actually wrong with it? Well, one of the biggest things was our title was, car culture isn't what it used to be, thank God. But then people talked about how it's being ruined, right? So there's two ways to look at it. Is it better than it used to be, or is it on the skids? So I thought, okay, what are the actual problems we're currently facing within car culture? More than just like, I like these cars, I don't like these cars, elitist versus inclusive. What are the fundamental issues and how do we fix them? But before we get to that.
Ooh, I was about to before we get to that.
All right, go for it.
So like I said, I went through all the comments and one stood out to me that I thought was hilarious. It was by Little Spiky on YouTube. Said LMAO contradicted every statement, WTF. And on the surface, that just sounds like somebody who's like trying to like poke at us or whatever. But I actually think that's kind of the point, and it touches on what you said earlier about people want different things, and when we want to both be inclusive but not have all the like negatives that come along with everybody being there, including some of the troublemakers and stuff like that. So I think if it seems like it sometimes we're contradicting ourselves or each other, it's because this is difficult and there is no easy answer, because if there was, we probably wouldn't have street takeovers.
Well, we could say there's an easy answer. We could do a mic drop and say, this is how you have the perfect event, or this is a solution to car culture. And that would just anger the 49% of people or 51 that happen to want something different out of cars, right? There's people that think that car culture is stealing people's Challengers and wrecking them during street takeovers. They don't watch our videos, but they would disagree with us that that is a bad thing. So that's on one end of the spectrum, and there's the other end of the spectrum, which is Corvette curmudgeons. We're not on either place, right? I think car culture thrives in this middle ground, but like if that middle ground gets infiltrated by either extreme, it ruins it. So, but there's problems within the car culture as well. And before I get to some of my points, let's touch on some more comments, because there were some really good comments from users.
Yes. One thing that I like, there were a couple of people, XR Mercure, we talked about Mercures last episode, which is funny, and Dan Yudchitz both said that essentially Cars and Coffee events have been great. In my area, the younger crowd has embraced it, and you see a ton of families and young car fans enjoying the hobby. The future of the hobby depends on these type of events. so that people can come and experience these cars. And I think that that's something we may have touched on, that even though there are things that I think both of us dislike about modern cars and coffee, the fact that I always see children there, it makes me think that maybe this hobby won't be dead in 50 years, because they're getting, if I was a kid and I saw an Aventador, I would lose my mind. It would be the coolest thing. The one time I saw a Mercy when I was a kid, I fell over. So like seeing that, and I think calling that out as a net positive of the easily accessible car show, and that doesn't just all about trophies and curmudgeonliness, is very positive. I'd like that.
One thing I noticed to that end is people, when we were talking about cars and coffee, obviously we were talking about it based on our experience with cars and coffees in our area. That varies greatly based on the region, based on the type of people there, the organizers, how they've put it together. People disagreed with me on one side saying, oh, cars and coffee are anything like that. You know, they're super awesome. The people are amazing, diverse selection of cars. Everybody behaves. And then right comment below it, people are like, yeah, totally. Our cars and coffee is super elitist and terrible and everybody's snobs. And then on the other side of it, our cars and coffee is terrible because it's just a bunch of hoonigans. So it's like everybody has a different take based on what their cars and coffee is like. Some of them are amazing. They've nailed it. So how did they nail it? Right? And what makes the bad ones bad? Why are people ticked off about it? I'm pretty fed up with our local cars and coffee scene. Now, that's not all of them. There's like 7 locally.
Yeah, so there's so many.
I'm not trying to paint a broad stroke and say all the shows locally suck. They don't. There's a great car community within Cleveland. But I just don't really go to that many events anymore. So trying to take in all the comments, very good comments from last episode, and distill it down and say, what's the real issue behind my and other people's frustration if they're frustrated with the car culture.
A recent comment that I do like that I think might lead into to remind people of some things before you start your discussion. VWorks Art posted, I wish people would stop being so polar to one side or the other. Some gatekeeping is important. Keyword some. There's nuance to these things. And
nuance is dead. We have lost nuance.
And you responded essentially the same. And I think that is something that I feel, and I actually talked to a few of my friends about on a litany of topics, is that nobody seems to appreciate nuance anymore. And I think that's where a lot of this gets lost. You know, none of what you or I are saying is that we want to limit people from expressing their interest in cars or for enjoying their cars with other people who are like-minded. There's just some not great aspects that have come to these being so public and in your face and with social media and everything else that we don't want to participate in. I was at a show recently and an Aventador was just like banging it off the rev limiter, and I don't miss that. I was like, boy, I don't need to hear this anymore.
I was there too. It was cool for 5 seconds. And then 2 minutes later, he's still doing it. And then he stopped for a bit and they started up again. I'm like, all right, like
are we done
okay,
yet?
We're done. Like, do it a couple times. Fine. It's great sound, shoots flames. People have their cameras out and stuff. But so to that end, I'm going to go kind of in reverse order of what I did here. Is the question is, are shenanigans the problem? You know, the rev bumping, the burnouts, the donouts, whatever. And I'm not talking about street takeovers. I'm talking about, you know, excessively, excitedly leaving cars and coffee or whatever you do. I got an email from a local CNC cars and coffee that's quite well run, saying that, you know, basically standard of behavior. And if you're on this email list, you're not the type of person to do those things anyway. And I'm reading it and going, how am I on this email list? I love doing burnouts.
Like, what do you mean?
Like I confessed last episode, I'm like, I miss the days when I could leave cars and coffee sideways because it wasn't a thing. There wasn't an audience. People weren't necessarily wrecking. It was just a thing that a few people did. And it was like kind of a wholesome appreciation for it. And
I do remember you leaving our friend Tim's show down in Columbus in a very smoky burnout.
Yes, very smoky burnout. The Ferrari behind me that I didn't know was there probably didn't appreciate it, but boy, everybody else did. It was late. There was nobody there. What, like side street, private area, whatever. So again, so yes, I like burnouts. What car guy doesn't? I don't like burnouts in a clapped out G35 in the general direction of a crowd. But look at Goodwood, one of the most famous historic automotive events, worldwide accolades. They have a donut pad at the top of the hill, and it's a celebrated tradition, right? Those are professional race car drivers doing that. Pro race car drivers do the donuts when they win at Indy and Formula One and everything. Like, why is wanting to do donuts now a bad thing? Why is it frowned upon?
I think it's because it's all in very public places. And that's where you can really hurt anyone, even if you know what you're doing. But a lot of these people who are out looking for clout don't know what they're doing, but they sure think they do. And then they end up hurting people.
Okay, fair. So I would say, to that end, shenanigans are in our blood if we're a car guy. Cannonball, right? But I think we all want car events where people are mature enough to exercise judgment. When I go to Valley Vibes, which is kind of like an old school car and coffee, it's informal. People just show up. We know we are in the national park. We're using a public parking lot. We don't have a permit or anything. We just go, and we have to be respectful because we could very, very quickly lose the privilege to meet there. So it's all about context. I love burnouts. I accelerate normally leaving that place.
And I feel like everybody, other than there's been a couple of times the cops have been there, but I feel like for the most part, everybody's on the same page.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason, and some folks in the comments, I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly who you are, called this out, there's some friction. It's really early on a Friday morning. Not everybody's going to show up to that. That's a little bit of gatekeeping.
Self-gatekeeping, yeah.
They're like, hey, we all want to get together, but you have to put in the work to get here.
Sure. And
the people that care show up.
Yeah. And there's a whole smattering of cars there. And
it's awesome. Right? Every week, it's just a different group. Similar people show up, but it's always such an eclectic group of cars.
Yeah. So maybe that's it, right? We don't care so much what type of car you actually bring. We just want mature people there of any age with a mutual respect for each other and humility. And a humility that maybe recognizes if your car is quote unquote traffic and maybe should be in the annex lot if there's limited parking to leave space for interesting cars that everyone wants to see. A respect that says this is the wrong place to do a burnout, or a respect that says this kid's car is dumb compared to my rare Corvette, but I can tell he's interested in cars, so I'm going to check it out and engage with him anyway because he's the future of car stuff. Whatever. I got called out for using the generic term car guys. It's like, I mean, demographically, I'm pretty accurate, but I'm not saying it has to be. It's just car males and females and
what I do love
anymore. That's too exclusive.
What I love about some of the local bigger car events I've been to is there are so many car people there, like so many women driving like sick cars. And I'm like, I love this because I'm so used to like typical car guy BS that I'm like, I'm glad that there is like, we're all just celebrating our love for cars.
All right. So that's the next one. Is this about the people or the cars? Right? So one,
well, I know my answer.
A problem. Two, is it about the people or the cars? Somebody said car community, right? Community is about the people. And I responded, well, I don't particularly like people. I like cars better. And he's like, wow, writing you off. I was like, okay, fine. But I'm an introvert and an agoraphobe. So my answer may be a little bit different than other people's, but it is called Cars and Coffee, right? Not People and Coffee. Car events, car shows, not people shows. Like, I like my people in my circle, but why is it okay and cute for dog people to say that they prefer dogs over people, but car people can't say they prefer cars over people? Like, that's offensive.
Some cars are a lot cuter than some dogs. I'll tell you what. You ever seen a Miata?
It's a whole nother episode. But there's this new trend with car clubs saying their tagline is, it's about the people. But I feel like those are car clubs I don't necessarily want to go to because then it's just a luxury social club.
But what I like about that and where I think I fit into this, I'm also pretty introverted and don't like talking to new people. Honestly, at car shows, I keep to myself. My most fond memories of car events are when I have my group of people and we like either drive there together or go do something. Like, I like enjoying cars with my friends who are also passionate about cars.
Well, but that's cliquish.
I don't care. It's like, I genuinely, that is my enjoyment from the car hobby. The enjoyment of using the machinery, of being around things that I never thought I'd be around as a kid, but also having great friends that I've met through the hobby to enjoy it with. And I just hope that other people can find friends in the hobby that they can do the same thing with.
Right. And I think that's part of the reason why the make-specific car clubs are, in a sense, dying. Because, like, I don't want to be best friends with a guy who happens to have the same car that I bought. That may be a connection point. That may be a catalyst for friendship, but it's not the foundation. Yeah. And in fact, I might dislike them because they're too much like me. Like when Jerry Seinfeld and was it Janine Garofalo was his girlfriend? Is that even a real name? My pop culture IQ is like 3, but they're dating and they realize they're like, oh, we're dating each other. This is so great. It's so easy. And then they look at each other and they go, I hate this. I'm dating myself.
Yeah.
So the very diversity that makes a car event great, and I mean diversity in cars, also is what makes friendships great, is you're not the same. You don't agree on things. So some of the best friends in the world that I met through cars, but that's not what continues our friendship, because they might sell their cars. They might decide they don't like cars, or like, let's say you're in a Miata club. The guy sells a Miata. Is he out of the club? Can you not be friends with him? If the Miata is the basis of your friendship, it's a weak friendship. So yeah, in that sense, I get why people call it a car community and say it's about the people. But I disagree. Car events are about the cars. And there's some great people there, and there's some Corvette curmudgeons.
I do think your point about some humility is not everybody has to like my thing. I feel like as a 996 owner, and I've been one for like 8 years now, is really prepared me for this. Because just now, in the past year or two, am I getting people giving me thumbs up or waves or like, nice car, man? Forever, nobody cared, or they thought they were ugly. And so therefore, I never felt like I had a place at a lot of car shows. I would park on the outskirts of the main lot, or, sometimes if I have friends running the show, they'd be like, hey, come in, or if there's space. But I would never just assume that I get to park front and center just because my 996 is green or that I have a Porsche. I was happy to be there, but also acknowledging that somebody with like a sick GT3 or Viper or some blue M3 and like crazy like color, whatever, is like, that is what people want to see.
And I think the key here is that we have to not ascribe worth to a person based on the worth of their car.
1,000%. There's a lot of people with real expensive cars that I don't think are worth all that much.
I want to go to a car show that has great cars. The people parking their cars in the front, that doesn't mean they're great people. You can have the clout chasers and expensive cars. You can have the real gearheads and cheap cars. I think we tried to communicate that last episode, maybe didn't get there. But some of the greatest car people I've met at events, one in particular is Bob Niedinger. He was a co-founder of Cars and Coffee. He drove a town car. Nice. He never had a car at the event that was worthy of the event, but he was a car guy and he was there and he helped build that to a great event. So I think the solution, and it's a difficult balance, but the solution in sharing the passion and the kind of the tension of inclusion versus elitism is, how does one foster an environment? And solution is a question, right? But that is welcoming to all people, but not to all cars. Because I think people get offended when we say, well, your car isn't good enough for this show, or people don't get excited or they're not coming to see your car because it's like, well, we're devaluing you as a person. That's not the case. You're not any less of a car person. It's just, if the event is about the cars, if the car community is about the cars, which I think it is, We want to see the good cars. We want to have good cars at an event.
Yeah.
But we want everybody there. We want all open to all people. Just maybe you don't park your car in the main lot or whatever it is of said event. But that doesn't mean you're any less. It's just people are coming to look at the cars. And then friendships and relationships and cliques and whatever are formed through those relationships as we talk and as we actually come out of ourselves and interact with other people. The extroverts anyway. I've got my group of friends. I'm good.
Yeah. No, the only reason that I have the friend group I do is because I met Dan because he had a Ferrari, and then he is an extroverted, more extroverted than I am. So he introduced me to a bunch of people that I just happen to get along with really well.
Right.
And he doesn't have the Ferrari anymore. I'm still friends with him.
Yeah,
so that had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. He's got a crappy Alpha now.
Ew.
So I think that's, in my mind, the overarching philosophy that I think will help events continue. And then circling back, I think the main problem and the thing that will kill any event, and this is, boomer car shows with their trophies. This is Cars and Coffee with clout chasers. This is the rev battles. This is the shenanigans. We talked about humility being the key to a good event, both in being mature and respecting of the context of the event, whether or not it's appropriate to do shenanigans, respecting other people's cars. And the opposite to that, and the root problem of any generation is the need for validation or attention, right? So I have a one-of-one Corvette. I need an award. You hear this is where the Corvette curmudgeon stereotype came from. That's where his character came from, was the Corvette club, that every person needs an award to be told that their Corvette is more special than the next guy. And in the modern context of it, it's social media. I got this video of this burnout or this wreck. I've got the one-of-one paint to sample Porsche GT3. It's Corvette guys with more money. People writing huge checks to show off their specially optioned Porsches. It all comes back to self-focus. And that is what will kill any event. And that is, I think, the cancer of car culture, self-focus. And I mean, that's the cancer of
a lot of things, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't end there. But I think that's the root cause, the root problem behind some of this stuff we're trying to flesh out. That's why people do these things. But if you're not there for validation, and you're going to car events to appreciate what the car community has to offer in whatever form, then that will just naturally work itself out, whether there's expensive cars or registrations or trophies or not.
Well, and I think I've heard a few different people say this. I'm not going to quote anybody. It's probably similar podcasts or people that our listeners have also listened to. In some sense, clothes should be an extension of yourself and who you are. So it's how you portray yourself to the world. And I believe, and so do some other folks, that your car is an extension of yourself and is a part of how you present yourself to the world. And as car people, I love that I feel a connection with my car and that it's an expression of a part of me. Maybe it's just that I grew up always wanting a Porsche. Now I got one, or whatever that might be. I think it makes it very easy to feel attacked if your car doesn't get to be at the front row in the show, or if somebody just walks by your car without saying anything, because as a human, we strive for that acceptance and being noticed and hey, cool car, bro. But I think I guess this is maybe within a perfect system, that if you have some patience and if your car is in a way an expression of yourself, you will attract like-minded people. And that's how friendships can form. Mm-hmm. And even though Doug has different cars than I do, and Dan has different cars, and all of our other friends, it's all kind of, we're similar enough that we found each other.
Listen, we're friends with Ethan, and he drives a Nissan Murano.
It's going to be a cross cab soon, and there's a Z3 in the future.
There you go. Yeah. All right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, but if it's a 2.3 Z3, are we allowed to shun him?
Oh,
no. We welcome all people.
Never be that.
And even if your car isn't an extension of yourself, it doesn't have to be. But I feel like for a lot of car people, we fall into that. And I will admit, You go on the internet, 996 guys have massive chips on their shoulder. My God, they're so defensive of these headlights. I was like that at first too. Be like, it's still a 911, but now I just don't care because I'm not searching for other people's validation. I love my car.
Yeah, your headlights aren't the problem. The gray interior is.
Doug, I swear to friendship over.
This episode is brought to you by Sheffield All Sport Watches. The Sheffield brand was recently revived by Jay Turkbus, an owner of an original Sheffield All Sport diver he received from his parents in 1970 when he was just 11, beginning his love of watches. As an adult, Jay used his extensive expertise in product development and marketing to revive the brand that started it all. He set out to develop watches with a high level of quality and specification at a value price. His first effort, and a successful one in July of 2023, was the debut of the Sheffield All Sport Diver 1. It had the kind of build and movement that much more expensive watches use, and his debut price of $108 was equivalent to the $13 his parents paid back in 1970. Since that debut, Sheffield has expanded to a wider range of automatics and chronos, many designed around vintage Sheffield dials of the 60s. The Sheffield well of clever and unique design remains his inspiration, as well as maintaining the goal of high quality, very affordable range of automatic and quartz watches. Sheffield Watches, value on merit, not just price. I love mine. Get yours at SheffieldWatches.com and mention that you heard about them on SwitchCast. Thank you for joining us for SwitchCast with Doug Tabbutt and Tyler Sanders, produced by Ethan Huffnagel. SwitchCast is an automotive entertainment and opinion show, and nothing we say should be taken very seriously. We do not give tax, investment, legal, emotional, or professional advice, and the only licenses we hold are driver's licenses. The opinions expressed on this show are exclusively held by the people pontificating at that moment and do not reflect the values of our producers or sponsors. Our theme music is provided by Emily and Ivory. You can stream their full album on Spotify or SoundCloud. If you like this show, you can stream it in its entirety on your favorite audio podcast platform. Check out switchcast.live for more info.